welcome back to my channel, Currently Reading. I'm Sarah and this is one of my bookcases. Today I'm going to talk about my recent read of John Steinbeck's Cannery Row. I keep wanting to say Canary Row or Canary Row, right? Cannery Row, not Canary Row. So just a disclaimer, I am a big Steinbeck fan. He's might be one of my favorite writers. Whenever I read him, I'm like, he's my favorite. And I think I've been reading about one of his books every year for the past several years. Of course, you know, I think my first book of his was required reading in high school. I think it was 11th grade, and we had to read Of Mice and Men. I don't really remember too much about it, except for some of my friends would tease me that I was like one of the characters. I think it was one of the characters, the big guy that like killed the animal. I can't remember if it was like a rabbit or a rat or something, because he like squeezed it too much or like held it tightly too much. And so some of my friends would tease me that I was like that because I was obsessed with my cat. And so that was kind of funny. But anyway, so then, you know, of course I read like Grapes of Wrath and East of Eden and The Pearl and Travels with Charlie. And last year I read Winter of Our Discontent, right? Yeah, so his books are right here. Let's see. I actually didn't care for that one, the one that I read last year, the Winter of Our Discontent. It took too long. Well, I think it took too long for me to get into the book, and it had a lot more dialogue in it, and I find that, you know, he's writing what was like in the 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I believe, and the dialogue back then is just not very translatable to now. Just like the phrases that they use and the words that they use, I was like, it definitely feels of that time. I just found it hard to like really get into that book and to like identify as any of the characters, which is, I guess, what I normally do is I try to find myself in the characters. I mean, that's normal, right? And so I just couldn't find myself in that because the dialogue was just so different. So, but this one, Canary Row, I didn't have that problem because there wasn't really that much dialogue. I guess there was quite a bit of dialogue, but just not as much, because in his the way he wrote this was a little bit different. So it was like there was a underlying story that was going throughout the book, but then it was like every other chapter he would just kind of talk about random stuff that didn't relate necessarily to the specific storyline. So he's basically just setting the scene, right, and that's why I like his writing so much, is because it feels like you're just dropped into this world, in this case, a coastal town in California, and you basically learn about the cast and characters of the people that live there and how small town life is. And so you learn about the grocery store owner, you learn about the doc who works at the laboratory, you learn about the women at the brothel, I guess it would be called, the people that live in a boiler pipe. Some of this was kind of weird. And then the main characters, I guess, would be Mac and Doc would probably be the main characters. And so that kind of story was going throughout the book. And then every other chapter you would learn something about some other random person in town, or something going on in town, or something like that, just to give you kind of more of a wider view of how the people act. And just give you a closer look at how the town is, I guess, if that makes sense, if I'm making sense. So I did find that I was really into the storyline, and so every other chapter, I mean, I still liked it, and I knew what he was trying to do. It did kind of take away from the pace, I guess, because I was like, I want to get back to the story because I was invested. I wanted to know what happened. And so like every time it was stopping that story. And so I was just kind of waiting. I wanted to get through that chapter so I could get back to the storyline, basically. But I still, really enjoyed learning about all the people. So, and like I said, how I didn't care for the dialogue in The Winter of Our Discontent, because it was hard to relate to the 50s dialogue. And there was a lot more references to, so a lot of these people are like working class, poor, really like struggling to get by. And so there's a lot of references where it was like people did that. I mean, I was kind of confused, and I think it might have made more sense if I was older. If I lived in that time, I'd be like, yep, that's true. So I think reading it now, it's kind of like, did he just make that up? So, and one of the biggest examples is that boiler thing. Which is so weird. And I just don't understand how that is a thing. So it was like some factory, I think in town, had this boiler and it wasn't going to work anymore. So they put it in this yard that was full of just like scraps. And then a couple, this man and woman, moved into the boiler and lived in it. And so reading it, I was like, is this real? Like, I'm trying to imagine what this boiler looks like to be big enough for someone to like live in it and sleep in it. And then he like rented out other parts of the boiler so other people would sleep in it. And I'm like, how big is this thing? So maybe it's just because I'm ignorant about boilers, or maybe that was a thing back then. I don't know, but it was very kind of confusing to imagine. When you're reading a book, you're imagining it all in your head. And I was just like, what is this? Overall, I really enjoyed it. It really kind of made me nostalgic. I don't know. It's like this idyllic town, but it's not in the sense of idyllic in ways that I think, it's not like a utopia. It's not like a paradise. Like, these people are poor, they're not rich. They don't have extravagant lives, but it's just simple. And, they know everybody in town, and, I don't know. It made it seem like I would like to live there. Like, everybody's a character, and just really interesting to read, I guess. So that's about it, I think I have to say about that. John Steinbeck's Canary. See, I did it again, and I tried not to do it that time. Cannery Row. Cannery Row. And, check it out if you want to. I'm a big fan of Steinbeck, so, and I will hopefully read another one of his next year. So until next time, keep reading.